Okay, so this Hangout is live, everybody. I want to welcome you to our first official Google Plus Hangout hosted by Hootsuite here. It's National Small Business Week, so we're really excited to get together some real experts in the field of SMBs, SMB marketing, SMB social, and really just sort of celebrate Small Business Week by giving you guys some amazing free content here in the form of a live online panel. So the official title here is Save Time and Grow Your Business Online, obviously featuring experts from LinkedIn, Infusionsoft, and Hootsuite as well. So we're very excited to be here. We're very excited about our guests, and with that, I'd love to introduce our first guest, Heather Dobson from Infusionsoft. She does some social strategy there. So Heather, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do there, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks, Connor. I'm really excited to be here. So my name is Heather Dobson. I'm the manager of social strategy for Infusionsoft. And if it comes to social at Infusionsoft, I have my hands all over it. So in addition to creating the social strategy for Infusionsoft as a whole, I also work to develop educational curriculum for our customers and for employees as well. And our customers and our target market is strictly small businesses. 25 employees or less is really where our sweet spot is. So we really have a passion for helping small businesses succeed, and I find that social media is such a powerful medium for small businesses to leverage. They just need some education in how to do it.
Cool. Well, we're really excited to get into all the nitty-gritty of all that. Next, we have Lana Cavinson from LinkedIn SMB. Lana, welcome.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here. Again, my name is Lana Cavinson, and I'm the Small Business Marketing Lead at LinkedIn, and really my team and I are focused and dedicated to evangelizing for small businesses how they should be using social media to achieve their unique goals. There's so much the social media can do to help a small business that's resource and time constrained, and so I'm so excited to be here and chat a little bit more about that.
Awesome. We are very excited. And lastly, we have my colleague from Hootsuite, Roger Graham. He is the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Hootsuite, and he's got some really exciting stuff that he's working on right now, specifically geared towards SMBs. So yeah, I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of that as well. And Roger, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depends on where you're located. Super excited to be here. There's lots of things that we chat with small businesses about around social and how to understand how to get value out of social engagement, how to drive website traffic and capture leads and increase sales and build community and customer service. So we're really excited about being here today. My role at Hootsuite is to work directly with small businesses and understand what social needs are, so I can help inform our product team what's going to work best and make sure that we deliver products to market that are really useful. So thanks very much.
Cool. I'll just mention quickly, my name's Connor. I'm actually a Community Manager of North America here at Hootsuite, and I will be your humble moderator today. So with that, let's get into the questions here. So, the pain points for small businesses are obviously, you're working on your business, you're short on time and resources. So what are some quick tips to do with social? Maybe where to get started for busy people, running their own small business. How can they get started and really sort of see a little bit of benefit using social media? Lana, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So first, I would actually encourage small businesses to just take a minute and think through what goals they're trying to hit. So what do they want to achieve? Is it just brand awareness? Is it acquiring customers, so attracting new customers, or is it engaging with existing customers? So based on that, there's lots of different things you can do on social. And then from there, I would think through where you want to be. So there's a whole slew of different, obviously, social platforms, and people come to each of those platforms with a different mindset. So think about what you're trying to achieve, and then think about what platform is going to be best for achieving those particular goals. And after that, it's a matter more of just getting the right content out there. and everything just should line up. So it's really taking that time in the very beginning to plan out and think through your strategy, and then really using content that either you create or that you find out in the market that you want to share out that's going to help you with those goals.
I love it. It's interesting you mentioned the content, whether you're creating or curating, because obviously the big thing with SMBs is the lack of time. Heather, do you see small businesses? How can they sort of curate content and really use that to their advantage when they're getting started with social?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest concern that small businesses have when it comes to using social media is I just don't have time to do this. I'm busy building my business or building whatever my expertise is. I don't have time to use it. So my recommendation to small businesses is, one, create consistency. You don't have to be on every social media platform all day long. Create some consistency. Have a schedule to where I say it's like brushing your teeth. Do it once in the morning and once in the evening if that's all that you have time for. But it comes down to really, just like Lana said, really identifying who your target is and where your target is, starting to get really, really good at one platform instead of just sucking across all of the platforms. And then using a strong, powerful content curation tool is what can be so helpful to so many small businesses. And Hootsuite has an add-in, a plugin that will allow you to curate content. There are many ways that you can curate content, but it is identifying what's the content that's going to resonate with your audience, and then utilizing that in your schedule in order to be able to send that out to your audience.
Right. I love it. And Roger, I know you've done some research recently with a lot of our SMB clients and customers. So what are you seeing in terms of tips that they can do to get started and really sort of utilize the little bit of time that they do have?
That's a great question. So just want to echo a couple things. So Lana was talking about making sure there's a baseline strategy to understand what your goals are. We talk to a lot of small companies, and their focus is generally trying to drive revenue and having something tangible to drive people to, like something you own, an own channel, like a website, for example, is really key. So you can feed people there. And certainly what Heather was talking about in terms of making sure that you're connecting with your audience and the right content. And there's different tools out there to help find content quickly and share that with the audiences that you have. One of the things that we've seen quite successful around small business and social is trying to figure out what types of content really resonate with your audiences. So it might be lifestyle content, because you certainly don't want to be in a social environment and continually trying to sell. You generally want to find a peripheral topic that you can engage people on. So there's a good example. There's a company called Vega that provides health foods, and one of the things that they do is they look for peripheral activities like yoga or summer activities or hiking or biking, and inject content into like how to stay hydrated and great yoga, different flex moves and things like that, so that they can engage with their audience around valuable content, not just specifically around selling a product. So that's really important to remember, is find things that are interesting to your audience and share those out. And there are different tools. I mean, certainly at Hootsuite, the Hootlit Chrome plugin is a great way to quickly surf the web and then find content and share that out. So that's a good way to do that. But there's other tools out there. But the key thing is making sure when you find content, it's relevant to your audience. And of course, tracking back to see how effective that is in terms of shares and engagement is great as well. So I would encourage people to take a look and see what their target audiences are actually interested in, and what type of circles they're in, and what type of engagement you're getting through LinkedIn, for example, and seeing what groups people are having conversations on, finding content around that. And actually, when you find something that's you're passionate about and engage with, then it's really not that hard to surf around and find some great content to share back out.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Just locally, Vega does a really good job. They're out of Vancouver, where our office is based, and yeah, they really just sort of attach themselves to what people who consume their product identify with in terms of a lifestyle perspective. So they're really big into obviously running, triathlon, yoga, lifestyle, and they really just promote healthy nutrition and healthy life more than just that. So it sort of goes a little deeper than just what their products would normally sort of tell you. So one other thing we'll riff on quickly, and I'll open this up for anybody. Do you think a small business who doesn't have time to produce their own evergreen content, can they get by with just strictly curating content and becoming really a trusted advisor and thought leader just around curated content?
Well, I think I don't know, but I will say this is that when it comes to actually really connecting and engaging with your audience, it's less about selling and it's more about sharing information and solving a problem. So I love the Vega example because they're not just constantly pushing their products, but they're sharing information about additional, additional yoga or running or all these different things. And so if you back away from just talking about your products or what your services are all the time and really focus on sharing information and solving problems, you probably will be finding more information out there in kind of that peripheral community. I think that it's important for small businesses to still have a voice and still share their own pieces of content, but we've got to be able to teach small businesses how to do it in quick and efficient ways. So that's where the 15-second Instagram videos come in handy. That's where visual imagery comes really in handy. I don't want small businesses to think that they have to sit down and write a 1,000-word blog post every single time they want to produce content.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And obviously, SMB owners don't have time to, produce 1,000-word blog posts that are going to rank in search and things like that. Anybody else have anything to add in terms of, curation versus, evergreen content creation?
Yeah, I'd love to add to that. So we have a company that we did a case study on called AmeriFirst Mortgage, and there's a really great example of content and how to use content to really start building a relationship. So just to take a step back for a second, everything that everyone was saying is spot on, but I would add to that the social media is not intended to be the place where you're really doing that hard sell. So, for example, email, direct mail, those are places where you send out direct sale type content. But on social media, it's about building relationships. And so this is the place where you have a conversation and you start being top of mind. And time and again, research has shown that when you're top of mind and when you're a trusted brand, the business will come to you. You will be thought of first when someone has a need. So AmeriFirst Mortgage being a great example, it's a mortgage business, so there's obviously plenty of those out there. And what they've been doing is they've been using their company page to put content out about trends in the industry. So mortgage rates, the housing market, where homes are hot right now, where there's opportunity. And a lot of that is curated content, not content that they created themselves. But exactly as was mentioned, then they add their voice to it. Then they give a little bit of narrative to whatever the study is that came out. So it's not only about sharing the study, but it's helping people understand, well, what does that study mean to me? And what they're seeing is businesses coming to them because when people are ready to make that home purchase, they trust that company to actually help them, and they believe that they're going to do right by them. And so the business comes. They don't have to do that hard sell.
That's a great point. The hard sell. So I heard a good analogy a while ago, which is where social media is like there's a cocktail party happening, and you can't show up to a cocktail party with a PowerPoint deck and barge into a circle of people that are chatting about life and start to show them different slides on how great your product is. So it's more about just being in the right place and providing really valuable content. So that's a great way to do that, and a good example, Lana. And certainly adding your voice and adding some analysis or adding some additional value on that type of content is really good. And it shows their expertise, I imagine, because now customers see that and see that they're not just repurposing content that they find or curating, but they're actually spending a little bit of time and just adding some commentary. And you'd be surprised. Often it doesn't take a whole ton of content to add in terms of color commentary. It's just you can just add a little bit of content to that and it will position you as being a bit of a thought leader in that category. So every company that we talk to certainly is passionate about something, and they're certainly trying to, you know, they have products or services in a B2C environment or a B2B environment, but at the end of the day, they generally understand what their customers and audience kind of cares about. So expanding that and finding out some content pieces that you can kind of, let's say, own or share on a continual basis, it isn't that hard once people start to think about it. Heather's point earlier about the frequency and making sure that you stay engaged is very, very key, and you have to. Everybody knows there's a lot going on in social media, and there's a lot of different social networks, and there's a lot of different platforms and tools and things to engage with. And it's certainly starting with a small set and becoming good at a few, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, and going from there is definitely the right approach. So, but I like that example, Lana. It's a great example.
Great point.
And I would just like to jump in and point out something. Social media, like setting up your Facebook page or setting up your LinkedIn community page, should not be the very first thing you do. And that's what I come across in small businesses a lot is they've heard from everybody, I have to have a Facebook page, I have to have a Twitter account, I've got to have a LinkedIn profile, a LinkedIn community page, I got to have all this stuff. Really, you need to take a step back, and you need to understand that social media is one sliver of one slice of your overall marketing pie. And you really have to start, like Lana said earlier, start with the end in mind, and develop your goals, and really start to understand who your target audience is first, before you just jump on and you build yourself a Google Plus page and then say, well, nobody's there, nobody's interacting. You really have to start with that first. Don't put the cart before the horse and just create a Facebook page or create an account and think that everybody's going to come to you. Social media is not the field of dreams. You're not going to build it and they're going to come. You actually have to put some work into it, and it helps for you to have that relevant information about your target audience and about your customers before you jump into the big pool of social media.
Field of dreams, I like that.
So what you're saying is if you build it, they might come.
They might come, and then on the case of Facebook, they'll come if you pay people to come.
Ooh, yikes. So with that, let's move on to the next question. So this one's all about sort of brand presence, brand awareness. You know, SMBs are going through transition all the time, trying to figure out, you know, what they stand for, what are their values. So what's really essential here in building brand awareness for SMBs and really establishing that presence on social as they sort of, you know, transition their business?
Yeah, maybe I can just jump in there quick. Certainly, I think you have to, anywhere you're engaging with customers or you have a public-facing anything, you really have to think about how your brand extends into that space. So being smart about making sure the basics are in place. You know, little things you'd be surprised, like making sure your logo looks okay in the right context. You know, make sure the titles are clear, etc. Is kind of the base starting point. And then definitely, you know, think about how you communicate and engage with customers in the bricks and mortar kind of space or the offline space, and just try to, you know, make sure you carry that persona through social media, because at the end of the day, social media is it's going to be an extension of who you are and who your company is. So you have to just continue that voice through and don't change personas, because what happens is they're looking for authenticity, right? So whatever you project in social media, you're going to have to deliver that, whether it's a product or a service or customer service or through your marketing or sales people or through yourself as an entrepreneur. You'll have to carry that through. So I think authenticity is something that's started to take hold through social media and become kind of the de facto approach to carrying your brand through. So that's how a couple comments on the brand side from my perspective.
I would love to add to that. I went to a small business event yesterday as part of Small Business Week, and there was a woman there she's a solopreneur, and she was talking about how, along the lines of branding, how she has a similar set of imagery that she's using on her LinkedIn profile, on her LinkedIn company page, on her Twitter handle, and it's actually her in a certain setting. And so what she says, which I thought was spot on, is when I walk into a room, I want people to say, oh, right, I've seen her, I know her. And so for her, it's more about her and her face. She's a consultant. But it's that idea of you want to create a consistent message out in the market. I love the cocktail party concept. You want to be able to walk into a cocktail party, start talking, and have someone say, oh yeah, so I've seen you out there, or I saw you at another party, if you want to keep playing off the cocktail idea. And you want to have that consistency, and so that's so important. And for any small business, you're all about something. You all came into your business for a reason. There was a hook, whether it was a passion or maybe you wanted to do fair trade or whatever it was. And so that should be part of your brand. It's your voice. Maybe brand is a marketing word, but it's your voice. What do you want people to think of when they think of you? And keep that consistent in all of the marketing channels you're using, not just social.
Right, and I want to just I want to add to that. Absolutely, the consistency is so important. Your logos, your pictures of yourself, all of those kinds of things should be consistent across your website, your business cards, all your offline properties as well as all your online properties. I love that analogy that when she walks into a room, she wants people to know who she is. When somebody is scrolling through their Facebook feed or their Google Plus feed, you want your logo to be consistent so that when somebody sees it, they instantaneously recognize and associate it with you. And so where that brand consistency is important, the other thing that I would add to that is relevancy. So if you want to build trust and you want to be seen as a thought leader or someone who is sharing information or solving problems, you have to be sharing things that are relevant to what your services or products are. We talked about Vega earlier, and Vega is this great health brand, but they're not out there sharing stuff about cats, right? Or about puppies. They're sharing stuff that is related to their product. And so consistency, brand consistency, and relevancy are key essentials of just building that brand awareness.
And if I could add to the relevancy piece, because I think that's so core to everything. So you can have a brand and what you stand for, but then you have to factor in that relevancy, especially on social. So there are several strong social platforms these days, and they have people coming to them with different mindset. So think about that as you're using your social platform and be relevant. So on LinkedIn, for example, we talk a lot about people coming to LinkedIn with a professional mindset. So they're looking for professional content. How can they do their job better that day? How can they be more informed? How can they have insights so that they can excel at whatever it is they're doing? So that's the type of content that resonates. Whereas, for example, another small business owner I met yesterday, she's a chocolatier. She uses LinkedIn to engage with vendors and suppliers and other peers in her industry. But then she uses Facebook to connect with her customers and to talk about the different experiments she's doing in her kitchen. And so that's where relevancy comes in, and then you start to connect with people on a real one-to-one level.
That's it. That's a great point. You sparked something in me, Lana. At an event that I was at yesterday, people were talking about just creating this one piece of content and sharing it across all the social platforms in the same format. And I am so opposed to that. We need to learn the differences between automation and scheduling. There are two different things. And part of that relevancy is not only what's relevant to your brand, but also what is relevant to that particular platform. Just like Lana was saying, people have certain goals when they are on LinkedIn. That's different than when they're on Facebook, Google Plus, or Twitter. And so while you may have this core concept of this piece of content, the way you optimize it and utilize it on LinkedIn is going to be different than the way you optimize it and utilize it on Facebook, and then the way you use it on Twitter. So that relevancy goes beyond just what your company or your product is, and also applies to each of the social platforms.
Interesting point, Heather. I like how you brought up the idea of maybe tailoring content to specific platforms, obviously, because you have these small businesses that are we're telling them to pick 1, 2, 3 networks, not to boil the ocean, so to speak. Do any of you want to chime in on maybe repurposing content for different networks? Maybe they produce one piece of content. How can they best make sure that it's fully optimized for maybe the 1, 2, or 3 networks that they're choosing?
I'd love to give a great example something that LinkedIn did. This was a great example, and this can be scaled down for a small business to do. So LinkedIn put together this amazing ebook called The Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to LinkedIn. So it was an amazing book. It was an ebook. It was 54 pages, and for that quarter, everything that they did was related to that ebook. So they had spent a lot of time and effort putting in all this great content to this ebook, and then they broke it out. They did an infographic that was related to that. They did some podcasts that were related to that. They did some webinars. They did some blog posts. They had some guest blog posts. And then they actually published a hard copy of the book as well. But it's this idea that you take one core idea and then you look at all the peripherals you can build just based off of that one core idea and optimize it for each one of the offline and offline channels as well. So I just thought that was a really good example of taking this one piece of content and repurposing it. Jason Miller at LinkedIn calls it the Thanksgiving turkey analogy. So you've got this big Thanksgiving turkey, and then you're just taking slices of the turkey to fill you for the next month or for the next quarter or whatever it is.
That's exactly right. So just a quick plug. If anyone's interested, that ebook is on marketing.linkedin.com, and it is a fantastic piece of very rich content to help you understand how to make the most of LinkedIn from a marketing perspective. But as Jason does teach and we really apply, it's the turkey concept. So you spend time in your business, and we know resources are tight, so I completely appreciate that, but you spend time building out that very rich piece of central content. Sometimes we say it's the big rock content. And by the way, there are agencies out there who can help you do that, and there's scrappy agencies or scrappy research companies that can help you get those data points, those really interesting insights, the best practices, and then you can start splitting them out. You can start creating imagery to support them, blog posts, infographics, slide shares, and that's how you start spreading it across different social channels, but yet you're driving everybody to your website, to that piece of content, maybe to the lead gen form that will gate that content. And so it all starts coming together in that way.
Yeah, that's a great point, and again, reinforcing the mention around driving people somewhere. At the end of the day, I think companies are continually trying to focus on how do they get ROI from social and that type of engagement. You can measure certain things, and you definitely want to be able to tie that back to your business goals. So if you have to drive them somewhere, certainly a form to capture their email information, their name, their company, for example, is key, and certainly your web presence or your web page is the place to do that. In terms of, so we're talking about several different topics here, and I noticed that there's probably there's a whole bunch of people on this Hangout right now, and they're probably from a range of different company sizes. They may be a solopreneur or an entrepreneur with a few people on their team trying to grow their business. It might be a 10-person company or a 20-person or somebody that's really accelerating into 25 or 50 person size organization with different resource sets. And one of the things that we do is we talk to a lot of companies that are going through different growth stages, so all of those and then beyond. And then we do, of course, have customers that are much, much larger, but they all have, interesting enough, they all have similar challenges regardless of the size of the company. It's content and how to engage with social, etc. But so one of the tips that we heard from a company called Herschel, which is a backpack company, a great stylized kind of designer backpack company that's affordable, and they're one of our profile customers. And one of the things that they did early on is they didn't have a lot of resources. Obviously, it was 2 people started this basically in a basement and grew the business. Now they're 40 people, and they're having some success for sure. And one of the things that they did is photography was quite important to them as part of their business because they're selling a product and it's very visual and has some style to it. So what they did is they engaged with photographers around the world and just through their community, engaged with these photographers and just traded them. So provided them with a backpack, for example, or something, and traded for photography services. So when you're thinking about ways to develop content that might be out of your scope of resources, just think beyond what's possible. Now, there's certainly agency support, digital agencies that you can pay for certain strategy and tactical execution. Then there's content development, and it could be writers. There's lots of opportunities online to find writers or photographers, and so think about those different tools as opposed to trying to do it all yourself. Certainly if you're good with an iPhone and you want to do a video and try some things out, you can have some fun with it, certainly do that, but think beyond, and how there is a lot of resources now available globally through some basic sites that you can get into to figure out how to develop some of that fresh content if you don't have all the resources in-house. So that's just a point that people might want to think about too if they don't have in-house photographers and writers and web people. Think about what's out there, and can be fairly inexpensive if you look around a bit. So,
and if I could just jump in there, I love Scrappy. Scrappy is just the greatest thing. Even if you have resources, it's so authentic. And we had one of our influencers, or LinkedIn influencers, write an article a couple of months back where he spoke about that there's really no more B2B or B2C, it's H to H, so human to human. People don't want to buy from a brand, then they certainly don't want to buy from a company. They want to buy from a person. They want a relationship with a person. So really want to reemphasize the idea of the iPhone or whatever phone you have. Take pictures of your office. Take pictures of you with your coworkers. Do quick video snippets. People love video. People love visuals. Show them who you are. Show them what your business is about and the person behind it. Do little quick 30-second, 15-second tips and post those. So you don't have to go the agency route. You can make it really organic and let people get to know you and who is behind the product, and that can build a tremendous amount of brand loyalty.
Yeah, I love that. I actually, one of my early colleagues here actually used to tell me, you know, when you're starting your business, you got to be storytelling from day one, and it goes back to those you know, quirky little iPhone videos, iPhone pictures, you know, when the times are tough, when you're not doing much, that seems interesting, but, you know, you really got to collect and savor these artifacts and really just sort of share them willingly, even when you don't think people would be interested, because that really sort of ties into that whole human-to-human element. It really shows that you're a regular person and that you struggle just like everybody else, and it's pretty important for, you know, the culture of your business as well. I also love, I'll just mention quickly, Roger, I didn't realize that Herschel used to get photographers and they'd give them backpacks. It's pretty cool that they get back to the real barter system from back in the day. It's kind of like, I remember one of my friends who owns a small video production shop locally. He basically, you know, offered to make a promotional video for a local chiropractor and physio, and now he sort of gets free treatment for life type thing. So it's funny to see how you can, you know, barter services creatively.
You know, that brings up something that I think that's important for us to touch on while we're talking about the creation of content and curating content or using other people's content. There's a very important component which Roger touched on with this. This is user-generated content. So I don't have to be doing all the content, creating all the content myself as a small business. I want to ask my customers and my users to generate some content for me. And that you do that by asking them to send pictures of them using your product, or asking them to write something about how your services or your product has impacted them in a positive way. So just get out of this mindset that you have to create everything yourself. And if you've got happy customers, ask them to send pictures, to do videos, to do those kinds of things, and then feature them. Your customer success should be celebrated just as much as, or maybe more than, your own success. And if you're taking your customers and you're really highlighting them across the social platforms, that's going to stimulate more customers to be involved in that, to share your story and to share their usage of your products or your services. So don't overlook the importance of user-generated content as well.
Absolutely. So I just want to add one thing to that you can actually, for example, you can take, if you're starting and you're not sure how to start, take a calendar, find all of the many, many holidays that we have. Mother's Day, Father's Day, Labor Day, I mean, you name it. I'm pretty sure that you can find a holiday for every single month. And then leverage your customers, leverage that barter system, and create themes, or use those themes, I should say, and create content around those themes. So if you're not sure, well, what should the topic be? That's a great place to start. Guaranteed you're going to have something for at least once a month for 12 months, and then leverage those partners, the barter system, leverage your customers, and build out really fun campaigns just around that, and at least that's a good starting place.
Right. Great point, Lana.
Yeah, I love it. That's cool. It's an easy way to get started that way too. Okay, so we can shift gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about website traffic. What are your key tips for, it sort of goes along with content, obviously, curation and creation, but you know, how do you guys drive traffic to small business clients and websites through social media? Is this all social content? Is this always directing back to your website? What are some good strategies there?
Well, I think there are a variety of strategies, but ultimately you really do want to be driving traffic somewhere off of the social platforms. Yes, you can use opt-in forms and lead generation tools inside the social platforms, but ultimately you want to drive people off the social platforms to something that you own. Let's remember, you don't own Facebook, you don't own Google, you don't own LinkedIn, and if something happens and your content goes away, you need to have a space that is yours and yours solely. And so driving them to an opt-in form or just to some activity on your website is really important. What I like to tell people is that if you have an attraction piece, so whether it's an important white paper or it's an important a checklist that you think people might want, create something on one of the social platforms that is going to drive them to that piece of content that is on your website. So don't just go out there and you've got a link now to this piece of content and go share that link everywhere. Actually give compelling reasons. Give them a call to action. Here's what I have. Here's what you need to do to go get it. Now go get it. And send them to your website. And you want to make sure that capturing the names and email addresses, because at the end of the day, that's how you really need to take it to the next level. Your social media platforms are building your relationships and continuing to build your relationships, but if you want to get to the part where you're actually generating revenue, you've got to take it to a point where you've got people on your list and you're actually emailing them and contacting them off of the social platforms as well.
Love it. Anything else to add there, Roger?
Yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely. I think the simple model that Heather talked about, which is, you know, make sure you're clear about what you have, what you're offering people in terms of a content component, let's say, and giving them opportunity. There's something called gated content. I'm not sure if people have heard of that term here, but gated content is where you have a piece of content, and in order for somebody to get it, they have to provide their name and email, for example. And then that gives you the opportunity to engage with them later on, put them in your customer relationship management database or any other sales tool you have, like Infusionsoft's product, for example. There's a nice plug. They have a system where you can actually go through that whole process flow and make sure you can nurture various potential customers. So, you know, in the social world, you're constantly engaging with people, you're sharing valuable tools, and then you're making sure you're giving people that opportunity to head to your own property, and then conversion is another term, where you can actually get them to fill out a brief form and to receive some content and share that. So there's lots of different campaigns, and there's contests, and there's people dream up lots of interesting ways to get people to provide some contact information. And it's about value, and it's about understanding what your audience is actually willing to trade. So if it's a product, it might be might be a content piece related to lifestyle or tips and tricks for how a business can engage with that type of content or that type of tool. But then it also might be something else where they're just looking for an opportunity for a discount or a coupon or that type of thing. So people, it's a bit of a trade where people will provide their contact information if it's the right kind of content that they're going to receive, whether it's a coupon or savings or something as well. So lots of different opportunities. We couldn't go through them all here of how to do that, but certainly making sure you're driving people to a place where they can convert would be is the message there for sure.
Great, that's awesome. Anything else to add, Lana or Heather, or should we move forward?
Well, I think it's important to. I just really want to drive home this point of, don't just do everything on social. You've got to have a great website. You've got to have calls to action and driving traffic to your website. And then don't forget the most important, what I think is the most important component of marketing as a whole, and that's actually nurturing these relationships. You've taken all this time to build these relationships on social platforms, and then if they move over and they convert into an opportunity or a prospect because now they've filled out a form on your list, don't just ignore them, and don't wait 6 months and say, oh, here's an email from me. I know you haven't heard from me in 6 months, but actually, put together a nurture sequence of emails, or a nurture sequence of emails combined with postcards or with phone calls. Don't just collect these lists like baseball cards and then use them when you think you need to use them. That nurture component of your relationships is a critical component of how you convert a prospect into a sale.
Love it. Cool. Okay, so speaking of sales, let's dive a little deeper on this. What are your tips, and how have you seen companies successfully create a sales-driven social media strategy? Because all these small businesses, they're probably not going to do social media. They're not going to invest in it and really continue to put effort into it if they're not seeing some revenue and some sales get in.
Sorry, Lana.
No, go ahead.
This is what happens on Hangouts. Everyone can say something at the same time because you're not in the same room. So the key thing is, and I want to go back to the point that Heather just introduced is, once you have once you have an audience, let's say let's say captive audience, in the sense that you have their contact information, it is really, really important to think through how you're going to engage with them post capture in terms of their email or name. And I just think of it from the perspective of how I would like to be treated or engaged with going forward. So, and if there's value there, then people will be open to email engagement, etc. But you certainly have to, don't leave them on the shelf for 6 months, as Heather stated. It is really, really key. So you really want to think through, and it's not, we just think through things in terms of simple workflows and timings of how things can work out. But you really want to think through, okay, so if you get 100 names through a form, what do you do with those afterwards, and what would be comfortable for the audience to actually receive from you? Certainly not everything. You're not going to send an email to them every single week or every day, or maybe not even every month, but you certainly want to stay top of mind, engaging with good content. So that's something you have to think through to make sure that you're creating a proper nurture cycle beyond what's happening on that first step. So that's pretty key. So that's just a comment that I want to throw in, is making sure you think through what to do with people's contact information once it's received. If it's a one-time thing where you're offering them contact information in exchange for a savings or a coupon with it they can redeem, certainly you want to be able to track that. I mean, things are about measurement, and every entrepreneur and small business really focuses on the bottom line, because there's bills to pay, and there's overhead, and there's staff, and there's equipment and things like that, and capital expenditures. So certainly everybody's pretty clear on how cash flow balances and things like that need to work. So same thing goes when you're engaging online digital space when it comes to CRM or sales and engagement, is making sure you set some key performance indicators or some metrics in place to identify, okay, so if I get 100 people to fill out this coupon, or to get the coupon, I have their contact information, how many of those people actually convert, what does that mean for my profit margin, my revenue, and how to optimize that, so improve that next time. And that's the thing, is this learning cycle that can happen for companies just by taking a look and doing some analysis on how that program went, whether it's a campaign or whether it's a content campaign or whatnot. Take a look and see how that did. And the better you get at those metrics and identifying what matters, and there's so many metrics out there, don't get overwhelmed with the number of metrics that you can use. It really usually boils down to like 2 or 3. It's not, you don't need to overcomplicate things. At the end of the day, it's going to be how many people converted, what was the revenue looking like from that, and then you can deal with things like profit margin on the side as well if there's a discount mechanism. So really focus on the metrics and tracking, and then that'll give you much clearer targets. You'll get excited when you have conversions come through because you'll know what that means for your business, because there's value in almost every engagement that happens online. There's value in that, and if you can track that and identify what the value of that is, then you're going to be much more, let's say, targeted in how you approach your campaigns.
I would just love to double click on that and re-emphasize that. I think that as a small business owner in particular, you have to learn to love data. If you don't, you have to learn to love it. And it doesn't have to be a spreadsheet of information. It just has to be a couple of key metrics. But kind of looping back to the very beginning of our conversation, you need to figure out, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? When are you going to be successful? And successful very likely means, when are you going to be cash positive? When are you going to be making money for your business? And then back into it. Figure out how many customers you need. And then from that, figure out, well, how many people do you need to be prospects to get to those customers? And don't be scared by it. So even at LinkedIn, we're always experimenting. And what we always talk about on my team is, you're not going to get it right the first time. You have to know you're not going to get it right the first time, and you kind of have to embrace that. But you put your best foot forward, you measure, you see how it went, and then you figure out where there's opportunities, and you start tweaking. And then you just keep optimizing. You keep tweaking and fixing things until you nail your formula. And then one other thing I would just love to add, I want to go back to the cocktail party concept because it's so cool. Along those lines, I read an article recently about emails, and you should think about emails, and so we were talking about nurture streams. You should think about emails as dating. So imagine that social is your cocktail party, and you're having this light, casual conversation, and now you've gotten someone to your website to give you their contact information. Well, the emails are like dating. What kind of impression do you want to make? What kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be an aggressive first date? Do you want to be soft? Do you want to be funny? Do you want to be serious? And get that voice to come out through your nurture stream. And all of a sudden you start building that brand. You start building that voice in the market that goes all the way from social, hi, nice to meet you, all the way through the dating experience of your nurture flow. And next thing you know, you have this fabulous pool of customers who likely will not only be customers, but will actually be your evangelists and your advocates out in the market, talking about how cool you are, how much they love your products. And now you've created this awesome life cycle for your business.
Let's boil it down. Let's make it really simple. So here are the 4 T's. These are the 4 T's that I pass along to small businesses, to medium businesses, and to large businesses. Just like Roger said earlier, don't think that you're alone as a small business trying to figure out this whole content thing and this whole social media thing. There are businesses of all sizes that are struggling through this. So let's boil it down to the 4 T's. Target, track, test, and tweak. Those are your 4 T's. Identify your target, track the performance of your content, test the results of that content, and then tweak. Make the changes. So just put that, just write that down, hang it on the wall, and just utilize that for as a component of your marketing strategy.
I might put that on my bathroom mirror so that when I brush my teeth every morning, I'm continually reminded.
Target, test, teeth. Yeah. Wait a minute. Wait. Okay.
Yeah, how does teeth fit in there? So we're all talking about metrics and tracking. Does anybody? I'm sure some people from the audience are curious about maybe some of the specifics around metrics, measurement, tracking. Do any of you guys want to share any basic KPIs that people can think about tracking?
Yeah, I'll share a few. And again, I think Lana's comment there around, at LinkedIn, they're constantly going through this mode of trying things out and testing and optimizing as they go, and that exists at Hootsuite as well. I mean, and most companies are have hustle in them, and that's where you're going to find a lot of the excitement is that hustle. Whether we're talking a very, very small company or a large company, the hustle can still exist, and that's great to see that people are going through that kind of testing mentality. so for metrics, KPIs, some of the things that are important, and I'm going to throw some things out here that may not stick for everybody, but we can take a look at providing some content to share what the depth behind those are. But I mean, obviously revenue is a key thing. We take a look at things like conversion. So your conversion could be somebody from, let's say you send somebody to a landing page and then see how many people fill out, so 100 people hit that landing page, how many people convert, and in terms of providing their contact information or purchasing something. So conversion is something that you're constantly looking at different stages in the funnel, and that funnel term will pop up a lot if you haven't seen it yet as a small business. As you take a look at testing and metrics and driving sales, funnel is kind of the common term. So look at the different conversion that happens throughout the funnel is key, because that's going to tell you, and there's I'm going to say best practices, but there's examples out there of what makes sense for conversion at different stages in a funnel, whether it's a landing page to a sale, etc. So you want to look at those, because that'll highlight for you where you can improve and get the biggest gains the quickest, is where your conversion is working or not. So if you're sending out a tweet and it's got a link to a coupon, how many people, first of all, you want to see your engagement and the shares and how many people actually saw that, for example. Or if you're on LinkedIn and you share something on LinkedIn, how many people are going to engage with that? Once people go to something that, say a landing page, you want to take a look at the conversion through the cycles and those different steps, and then test some things out. So your headline, you'll want to test out those different ways. You want to take a look at the offer mix, etc. And I'm using an example of a product, for example, but it could be a service as well, and it could be B2B or B2C too. So, revenue, take a look at your conversion steps along the way, are the two that jump out that you can really, really focus on and optimizing. But I think Lan and Heather probably have a few others too.
Yeah, go ahead, Lana.
Oh, no. Go ahead, it's okay.
Well, what I was going to say, first let's talk really quickly about what not to focus on. So let's get away from the vanity metrics, how many followers I have on a Facebook page, how many friends I have, how many followers I have on Twitter. While those numbers are important for volume, those should not be your base and sole KPIs, performance indicators, because who cares? Who cares if you have 1,000 fans? I would rather have 100 followers or 100 fans who are actively engaged than to have 10,000 fans. And we need to be moving away from that. But I agree with Roger in that you've got to break down your performance indicators based on where people are in the funnel. Because once you have this big funnel and you're pulling all these prospects into it, then you've got to identify, okay, so they interacted, or they opened an email and they interacted in one way. I may need to put them in this other segment and market to them or nurture them in one way. But these people who opened an email, took further action, responded to me, and bought from me, they need to go into a different segment, and I'm going to market to them differently. So identifying your consumers' behavior and segmenting them based on their behavior is really important, because you're going to nurture them differently.
Yeah. And we talk about, sometimes with the segmentation, we talk about different personas. So one of the tricks that we use is we make up a person. We don't actually make them up. We actually look at the data and we see, okay, what does this person look like? And we name them. And so we'll name Sally. And all of a sudden we start creating a nurture stream specifically for Sally. She becomes a real person to us. And so when we do that segmentation, we have a person in mind and we're solving for that particular person. And I think that can sometimes make it a little more real when you're thinking about this funnel and it feels maybe a little bit daunting. Think about the exact people who are in these different segments, what they look like, what their needs are, what their interests are, give them a name, a face, and then start solving for them. And again, always iterate, always tweak. Tweaking is the perfect word. It doesn't have to be fancy, but try to take what you have, put something out first, determine what are those metrics that you want to focus on, and then keep improving. And really, it's almost like a contest. Keep playing against yourself. How can you do better than your last attempt? And that's how you're going to really drive more business.
So it's like angry birds for social.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. No,
Just so we're on the same page.
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, definitely making sure that, and you know, one of the things when you're time constrained, and most let's say companies, but most small companies and entrepreneurs are time constrained, and they're working 15 hours a day and they're juggling lots of different things. Compartmentalize. So try one campaign, run one, and do some analysis on that testing, but just pick one and just take a look at that and with fresh eyes. And there's lots of great content out there. You know, I know LinkedIn provides some great content. So does Infusionsoft, and of course we do here at Hootsuite, and we're going to provide some links for different ways to take a look at how to set up a campaign. Here's some key metrics. And how to engage on LinkedIn, for example, and see what can work. Because at the end of the day, when you don't have a ton of time, just try one thing, break it down into the 4 different parts, and then give yourself a scorecard or take a look at how you can improve upon that. That's the best way to start, and you'll learn so much just from getting out there and trying things, and that's kind of the mentality. It sounds like at LinkedIn it exists, and I know Heather has that at Infusionsoft, and here at Hootsuite is that hustle to just try something out, see how it works, and then iterate on that. And just try one as a starting point, one campaign, and break it down to the pieces and take a look at the metrics, and then you'll see how quickly you can evolve from there. Because it's easy to get distracted and do 15 different things, none of them that well. Just pick one campaign, call it whatever you want, and engage with that and see how you can optimize. So that's what we're seeing be effective for companies who don't have a ton of time to try everything.
That's the great thing about living in the age, the digital age that we are now. It used to be that companies would spend all this time designing this marketing campaign, and they would do some print ads, and maybe they would do some direct mail, and they didn't really know how it was going to perform, if at all, but maybe for several weeks or several months later. Right now, in the age of information, you have almost instantaneous data at your fingertips. When you start utilizing Google Analytics, and you start using the insights and the metrics on Facebook and LinkedIn and on Google+, when you actually are using the analytical tools that are available to you, you have instantaneous data, so you're able to test and to tweak right away instead of having to wait weeks and months to see if something is actually working for you. It's amazing.
Love it. Okay, so I don't think any of us realized how quickly this went by. We've got about 2 minutes left. So, you know, at this point, you know, I'd really like to open it up if any of you guys have any quick, you know, closing thoughts, really take homes, so we can, you know, just batter this down even further for, you know, small businesses and how they can really start using social to really help their business. Lana, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So I would say that kind of the reality check first I'd love to start with. If you're not using social, you are absolutely missing out. It's not an option anymore. It's a must-have. Now, appreciating the time is scarce. I think our friends at Hootsuite are a great partner and a great example of a way where you can consolidate your different social platforms into one dashboard that you're managing all the time. But you have to be on social. You have to. And also think about it this way. It's a free marketing channel for you. The different social platforms are free marketing channels, and what business can't use free marketing? So absolutely think through your goals and then use the different platforms in the way they're intended. Think about that mindset that people are coming to each social platform with, and then optimize for that. And then for LinkedIn specifically, we are very much a professional platform. So when using LinkedIn, think about that professional mindset and apply that process, that thought process, to the work that you're doing there. And I'd love to just call out, we recently launched smallbusiness.linkedin.com. It's a resource center specifically designed for smaller businesses, all the way from entrepreneurs who are just getting started to more established businesses. And it really tries to break down in very digestible pieces the things that you could be doing on LinkedIn to really solve for your different goals, whether they be branding, marketing, sales, or hiring. Oh, and thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Lana. Okay, Heather, quick little take-home message / elevator pitch in 30 seconds.
I agree 100% with Lana. You've got to be on social, and as a small business owner, you have to be on Hootsuite. disclaimer, I'm not getting paid. I don't make any money from Hootsuite. I absolutely recommend Hootsuite to every small business owner that I meet and that I know, because it is such a way to create efficiency utilizing your social media networks. At Infusionsoft, we are actually a customer relationship management, email marketing, and e-commerce for small businesses. And we have a lot of great resources for you too, but the one that I want to share with you today is actually a scorecard that helps you determine, is your website up to snuff? Is it actually producing for you in the way that you want? And the scorecard is completely free for you to use. It's at infusionsoft.com/scorecard. And you plug in your website there, and it starts analyzing your website, the performance of your social media, all of those kinds of things. Gives you a grade, actually gives you a grade, and then gives you some ways to improve. And away from Infusionsoft for just a second, I want to say that not only has LinkedIn started this resource center for small business, but Twitter has done the same thing, Facebook has done the same thing, and Google has done the same thing. So all of the major social platforms are really working hard to help small businesses succeed on each of their platforms. So don't overlook going directly to each one of those platforms and looking for the resources that they have available specifically for small businesses. And thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Roger, the floor is yours to take us home here.
So I'll keep it pretty brief. First of all, I'd love to thank Lana and Heather for being with us today. Very much appreciate it. I hope everybody in the audience here received a lot of good ideas and content. We're trying to share some links out as we go here, so that can help as well. And again, I think Lana's done a great job there setting up the SMB side of LinkedIn to make sure that there's some great tools out there. So check that out. And certainly, if you haven't heard of Infusionsoft, please check them out as well. They've got a great platform that's going to really help small businesses. And for a recommendation or a suggestion is just get out there and pick a basic strategy and execute on something, and you'll learn so much so fast. So I would just encourage people to do that. We do have a small business bundle that we're going to share a link out to as well. smallbiz.hootsuite.com/ we called it startup is the /, but we'll share that link out too. So hope everybody has a great day, and hope this is useful.
Awesome. I know it was very useful. I learned a lot just moderating this thing. So thank you so much, Heather, Lana, and Roger. This is us signing out. So thanks for joining us, guys.